Life is hectic.
Some days are just a blur.
We're Jay and Laura LaFoon, and we help busy couples stay married for life.
Welcome to the Married for Life podcast.
Something that's always come easy for us in our marriage, and I know it's a struggle for some of you because we've gotten a lot of emails, but for us, laughter is like a second language, and we're very fluent in it.
Whether we're laughing at ourselves or laughing at the other person.
We do a lot of laughing in our house. It's how we're convinced it's how the Lord gives us material for our ultimate date nights.
It is how the Lord gives us material. Just the other day, I was standing in our...
It was a couple weeks ago now.
It was Friday, December 21st, which is what? Solstice or something like that?
Winter solstice.
Yeah, whatever. I don't know the technical term, but I was standing in
you
the
didn't
bedroom,
even know.
and I was like, yay, today is the longest day of the year.
And I gave her this look like, what the heck? And then, without missing a beat, she takes her knuckles 3 times on her head, and she goes, hello, is anyone in there?
I knew what I meant. It just didn't come out the way it was supposed to.
It came out the opposite.
Which happens frequently.
Right, I call her my left-handed freak of nature because she is left-handed, and that's no offense to left-handers out there, but she is very...
We just see life differently.
Laura's very backwards a lot of the time.
But as a result, we laugh a lot in our house, and
I think part of it's because I'm a goofball. I mean, I can admit it.
Really?
Yeah.
You are?
And your idol is
Lucille Ball.
Yeah, so there we go. So we've got 2 of us here.
And we have always tried to infuse laughter into our home as well.
I'll never forget when the kids were little, and it just happened once, but it was stinking hilarious. Laura made Jell-O jigglers for dessert. And we'd had a nice meal, fun time with the family, talking and whatnot. And she made these Jell-O jigglers, and she cut them into little squares, and we're eating them, and she's still talking. And I just thought, I'm going to make up a game right here. And so I took the Jell-O jiggler and I stuck it to my forehead, and just waiting to see until, one of the kids or mom saw it, and we'd all do it. Well, Tori was the first one to see it. And so he just instinctively put it on his forehead, and then Grace saw it and put it on her forehead. And then finally Laura caught on that we were all doing something. And it was funny because the game was to wiggle the jiggler off of your forehead without using your hands, and then to catch it in your mouth if you could. And we all did it except for Mom.
I have a ski slope for a nose. So it just kept skiing right down the nose and off onto the table instead of into my mouth. But if you've never made Jell-O jigglers, you should try it. We'll put the recipe in the show notes so that you can make some and have some laughter in your home, because that is what we're talking about today, is the fact that as a couple, as a family, you can build laughter into your marriage.
And we're going to talk about the benefits of laughter, but also for those of you that laughter doesn't come easy, we're going to have some tips on how to bring laughter into your house.
But before we do that, we want to do a shout out to a listener. We got this email, and if you want to email us as well, you can email us at podcast@jayandlaura.com. Hello, Jay and Laura. My husband and I enjoyed the ultimate date night at our church. I found it very informative as well. However, to answer your question, what is the greatest challenge in your relationship right now, is a loaded one at this time in our marriage and in our life together. We've been married for 2 years, but we've been together for 5 years. Even though we lived together before we were married, I still struggle with being a submissive wife, and I think it's our biggest issue. So any advice, suggestions you can give me will be greatly appreciated.
Yes, Laura. Do you have some,
I think part
do you
of the
have some
issue,
advice
yes,
on how to be submissive?
I do, because
I'm waiting to hear it.
because we don't look at our marriage that way. Yes, the Bible tells a woman to be submissive, but the Bible also tells the man to love his wife as Christ loved the church and gave his life up for him. So you have to have both of those in play. And what that means is
she's only asking about one specific.
But that means that we are a team, and you need to love me like Christ loved the church and gave himself up. And I think in every relationship, what happens in our culture is we get this word submissive, and we automatically think that means I'm a doormat. That means I don't have any say in anything. It means my husband can rule over me. No, it doesn't mean that. It means that we both come into the relationship as team members. We are one, just as Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit are one. And it's not, we all have our roles to play. And I think we get too caught up on that word submissive, thinking it's negative, rather than thinking it's powerful. It's powerful in your relationship that you both work in your areas of what you're supposed to be doing. A man is supposed to love his wife as Christ loved the church and gave his life up for the church. And a woman is to be submissive as unto the Lord. And so that's where we just take that word submissive out and go, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be. We don't think about, no, I'm supposed to be submissive as unto the Lord. So if you're submitting to the Lord, you're automatically going to be submitting in your marriage.
Well, I think a good place to start, if you really feel this is an issue for you, Jackie, is to ask your husband, in what ways could I be more submissive? And if he says, well, clean the house every day, well, that's a little ridiculous. But if he says, when I ask you, for help, would you help me? That's going to be pretty easy. And just that communication about.
But see, I'm going to push back a little bit here because I don't think that's being submissive. I think that's being part of a team. Will you help me when I ask you to help me? Sure. I'm not going to ask you, how do you want me to be more submissive?
Okay.
That makes it sound like you're ruling over me. How can I be more submissive to you? How can I lay myself at your feet? And no, what we're doing here is we're being teammates.
Right. And you communicate. You ask your husband. If she says it's an issue, then it's bothering her. And a good first step is to say, honey, this is bothering me. Is this something that you struggle with too?
What, a husband being submissive?
No, that you don't feel I'm submissive enough.
I just don't like the word.
I know.
No, I don't like the word. I don't think that that's the way God intended marriage to be.
Okay, here's a perfect example. Laura, where do you want to go for dinner?
I don't know.
Okay, then we're going to go to Red Lobster.
Great, you're taking me out on a date.
That's what I'm talking about. If the wife says, I don't know or I don't care, and a husband makes the decision, then don't push back. It's simple stuff like that.
But I don't think that is being submissive. I think
that's being submissive. Because I decided where we're going to dinner.
Yeah, see, this is the problem. We're going to move on here. Maybe we'll do a whole podcast on submissive and loving your wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for the church. That means die.
You'd like that, wouldn't you?
No.
By the way, listeners, just so it's on the record, I am worth more to her dead than alive. So if I mysteriously die and Laura goes on a shopping spree, you'll know why.
Well, we are talking about laughter today and bringing laughter into your marriage and understanding 4 truths about laughter. And the first truth is this, that laughter can change your chemistry. And I'm just going to use an illustration from my life, how I saw, our bodies, we put chemicals, you take aspirin in order to hopefully, when you have aches and pains, you may take Vanquish, you may take aspirin, you may take but you take something that puts a chemical in your body that hopefully changes your body. And
caffeine.
Yes, we drink caffeine so that the caffeine goes in and
wakes
perks us up or whatever it might be. And your body can be chemically altered. I grew up, my father had polio when he was 6. He had diabetes. He was diagnosed with diabetes in his early 20s. In my lifetime, he had 4 heart attacks and 3 strokes. The man was a sick man. Also, unbeknownst to me, he had some emotional issues. And I didn't find that out until later after he had passed away. But as a result, my dad was on a lot of medication, both for physical, emotional, and mental health. And as a result of that, at about 52, 53, he kind of went a little cuckoo because he had so much chemicals running through his body. He was over-medicated and it was changing his chemistry and who he was. In fact, I can remember walking in to the house one day. I think I was in college. I may have been late high school. But he's sitting in his lazy boy. He was now medically retired because he could no longer work at this point. And I walked in after school and he was sitting in his lazy boy chair. The TV's on with a blanket over his head. I said, Dad, what are you doing? I'm watching TV. Well, you have a blanket over your head. I'm still watching TV. The man was a little cuckoo.
That's why she married me.
He's a little cuckoo. But it was because of all the chemicals coursing through his body. And chemicals can change who we are. And laughter is something that can change the chemistry within your body. When you laugh, you actually release a chemical called endorphin. It's a natural opiate, for lack of a better word. It changes your chemistry. It makes you happier, kind of like an opiate would do, make you feel better. But this is a natural.
And it actually has healing properties.
Right. Well, that's why it tells us in the Bible that
laughter doeth like good medicine.
Yes. So laughter can change your chemistry.
And one of the places that laughter changes chemistry really quick is in the bedroom. I'm going to go there. That's right. Because there's so much.
We're laughing in the bedroom.
There's so much tension that surrounds our sex life. You know, if you've got your sex life figured out, bully for you.
Send us an email at podcast.com.
Yes, please.
Podcast at Jay and Laura.
how you've done so well with your sex life, because for us and for many, many couples, it's a struggle. And early in our marriage, I had high expectations. Laura's were considerably lower. And so many nights...
Because Jay's an overachiever.
Yes, I am. Yeah, and I lost my train of thought.
Bedroom.
Yes, bedroom.
Laughing.
That's why I lost my train of thought. But often I would go to bed and just start fuming because nothing was going to happen. And then one night, I don't know why, I just decided instead of coming on to her in a sexual way, I'm going to tickle her. And so we started having tickle fights and
Tickle parties.
Tickle parties.
Let's call them tickle parties instead of tickle fights.
A tickle party. Woo! Bring your hat. Anyway, and what it did for me was it changed my perspective. It really did. It changed the chemistry in the bedroom. I was no longer upset. I was laughing. It was okay that we weren't going to make love that night. And those tickle parties really changed my chemistry. So that's the first truth about laughter, is that it changes your chemistry.
The second truth is that it changes your attitude.
And it really is exciting to know that laughter can change the way we view things, our attitude. I love the definition of a sense of humor. When we ask people all the time, we get, sense of humor is the ability to laugh. No, anybody can laugh. Sense of humor is the ability to make other people laugh. No, some of the most miserable people in the world are comedians. A true sense of humor is the ability to laugh at one's self.
Yeah, we do that very well.
We do well, and I'm sorry, and I'm not trying to say anything other than people take themselves way too seriously. And they take a lot of life way too seriously. Don't sweat the small stuff. Let the small stuff handle itself.
Be the small stuff.
Right. But practice that true sense of humor and laugh at yourself when you do goofy, silly things. It happens all the time.
For us, I remember early on in our marriage, we would get into these arguments, and Jay would do the most irritating thing ever. We'd be arguing, and then all of a sudden he'd get this smirky little grin on his face. And it took me, I'm like, why is he doing that? Is he laughing at me because I'm fighting with him?
Like a chihuahua?
Yeah. Or it just was so irritating. But what would happen is he would get this smirky grin on his face, and then it would make me get a smirky grin on my face, rethink the argument. What is it that we're really arguing about? Really, we're arguing about how to put toilet paper on a toilet paper roll.
There's a proper way.
We were early in our marriage. Now I've, gone to the dark side and put it on the way he wants to. Instead of just putting it on, I was just like, is there a right and a wrong way to put on toilet paper? But apparently there is.
The manufacturer even tells us that. But
it does not. You pointed out to me and showed me where the manufacturer box tells you how to put the toilet paper on.
It's not in the box. I said the manufacturer.
Well, if you find it, we'll put a picture of it in the show notes.
Okay, I will.
But he would get this smirky grin, and after he would keep this smirky grin on his face, and I would continue to argue with him, and then I'd get a smirky grin on my face, and before I knew it, we were laughing and forgetting about what we were arguing about. And what it did was it changed that smirky grin turned into laughter. And then it changed my attitude about what we were arguing about. Because 9 times out of 10, early on in our marriage, it wasn't any big deal. It was something, like I said, toilet paper or whatever. Right.
One of our favorite authors is Chuck Swindoll. If you've never heard of him, you should read some of his writing. And Laura's going to read just a little snippet from Chuck.
That he penned about attitude. And this will be in the show notes. The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude me is more important than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. I'm convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. What great words from Chuck Swindoll. And like I said, that will be in the show notes. But really, laughter is important to build into your marriage because it does change chemistry. It changes the chemistry of you. It changes the chemistry of your marriage. And it changes your attitude. When you're in those moments, like Chuck said at the very end, life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. So let's react in a way that brings laughter.
In segment 2, we're going to talk about 2 more truths about laughter in your marriage and how it can bring health and vitality to your marriage.
Hi, everyone. This is Paul Thomas, Director of Live Events here at Celebrate Ministries. Jay and Laura are talking about laughter on today's podcast, and we've got some great ways for you and your spouse to get some intentional laughs this year. Now, our Celebrate Your Marriage conferences take place at Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island in May and October, and these are great ways to help you and your spouse take some intentional time away for each other, to focus on your relationship at one of the most romantic locations in North America. You get to enjoy great speakers that use comedy and biblical truths. You get to enjoy some great food, and you get to have an experience that's going to impact your marriage. That takes place this spring or this fall. Now, a few other events on the schedule that are coming up that I want you to know about. Our marriage cruise to Alaska takes place this July. That's going to give you and your spouse a chance to focus on each other while crossing off one of those bucket list items. You get to spend 7 days on an adventure with your spouse, sailing in the Pacific Northwest on the Norwegian Joy, while hearing from Jay and Laura as well as some other great marriage speakers. We've also got a great conference for you mothers and daughters. That takes place at Grand Hotel. It's called Memories on Mackinac, celebrates the special relationship that only a mother and a daughter has, and that takes place in June. If you want to find out more about these events, if you want to buy tickets, you can either check out the show notes or you can visit jayandlaura.com. If you're looking for a night out with a lot of laughs this winter, Jay and Laura are going to be back on the road as the Ultimate Date Night He Said, She Said tour kicks off. They're going to be in Yuma, Arizona and Sacramento, California in January, and there's a full slate of shows on the schedule for February. You can get tickets to an event near you. You can see where Jay and Laura are going by visiting jayandlaura.com. Now, let's get back to Jay and Laura LaFoon.
As I said earlier, we are talking about something that comes very easy for Laura and I, and that is laughter. But we really want to help you understand the importance of laughter in your marriage and some truths about what laughter does for your marriage. And to review the first, it changes your chemistry, number one, your bodily chemistry, the chemistry of your relationship. Number two, it changes your attitude. It really makes you think about things differently. And the third truth about laughter is that it changes your perspective. It changes your perspective. Years ago, when Laura and I were in youth ministry, we used to take kids out to Woodland Park, Colorado, to a camp called Quaker Ridge Camp. And Quaker Ridge Camp had this beautiful view of Pikes Peak. And I would love to...
Postcard view.
Oh, yeah, it was picture postcard. I mean, it was just like, the quintessential look at Pikes Peak. And I would love to wake up in the morning because as the sun rose from the east, it would shine on Pikes Peak just in a very beautiful way. But get up early in the morning before any of the kids and walk out to this fence line in the camp. I'll never forget it. This fence that just... you could, lean up against and look at Pikes Peak. And I remember one morning thinking, that mountain is laughing at me. And I'm like, okay, Lord, why'd you give me that thought? And it came to my mind, this mountain, I mean nothing to that mountain. That mountain's been there for hundreds of years. It will be there for hundreds of years after I'm not. And it was just as if the mountain was laughing at me, and I had to laugh at myself because it really puts into perspective how momentary life is, how much of a vapor we are, and how in the broad scope of the universe, let alone Pikes Peak, we're not all that in a bag of chips. And so it helped me understand.
You're mostly a bag of chips.
I'm mostly a bag of chips. You're so mean.
You're just a sissy. I'm not mean.
Oh, anyway. But when you laugh, it changes the way you look at things. And one of my favorite quotes from Martin Luther, the Reformer. Okay, so 1500s, Martin Luther, he is quoted as saying, "I judge the depth of a man's faith by his ability to laugh." Think about that. This is Martin Luther. This is no theological slouch, okay? And he said, I judge the depth of a man's faith by his ability to laugh. Depth of his faith by his ability to laugh. And boy, that just, to me, he didn't say I judge the depth of a man's faith by his ability to quote scripture or his ability to pray or his ability to serve. He said by his ability to laugh. And I think probably, we don't understand it in our culture, but life was probably really hard in the 1500s. Well,
it makes me think of the story of when your mom was diagnosed with cancer. And she was given 6 weeks to live from time of diagnosis. And I remember sitting in their living room in Perry, Michigan, and she had just received the diagnosis. Her family doctor was there. We were all just bawling. And Doyce, as only Doyce can do, she just started laughing. She started laughing, and then she took her finger and was pointing at each and every one of us. And she said, you know what? I may be dying, but I'm going to be with Jesus in 6 weeks, so it sucks to be you. So we all just started laughing, and it changed our perspective. And that is something very important laughter can do in your marriage. It changes your chemistry, it changes your attitude, it changes your perspective.
And by the way, 6 weeks to the day that she was diagnosed, University of Michigan Cancer Center declared her cancer free. And that was what now, 20 years ago?
Probably more than that.
Yeah. So, laughter can do a lot. It can change a lot.
It can change your chemistry. It can change your attitude. It can change your perspective. And the last truth about marriage is that laughter changes your heart. It's not any coincidence that in Proverbs 4:23 it says, "Guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life." Your heart is who you are, and we have to guard that. But we also want to be able to bring laughter into it, because of Proverbs 17:22 says, laughter does like good medicine. And what this goes back to is how we talked about in the first half, is laughter is a natural opioid. When you laugh, you release that endorphin into your system, and it changes your heart. And so many times in marriage, our hearts need to be changed. We become bitter towards our spouse. We become ungrateful for the things that we've been given. We just become wrapped up in so much
junk,
bitter emotion, that we forget to laugh. And when we can laugh, it can change our heart. And who doesn't want to have some of that hurt, some of that bitterness, some of that resentment taken out of your heart, taken out of your marriage, and replaced with laughter? We
really feel honored to do what we do for a living. And one of the reasons we love what we do for a living is because we love to see husbands and wives laugh together. It is my firm conviction. I have no proof of this. It is just my conviction that hearing your spouse laugh is arguably one of the most attractive things in the world. It is so attractive. And I'm talking in every way possible. Obviously romantically, obviously as friends, obviously spiritually, because when you're laughing, all is well in that moment. In that moment, all is well. And what a great thing for your marriage, to change the heart of your marriage through laughter. So again, if you have trouble laughing, we have a few suggestions. One would be to pick a silly sitcom. Laura loves her silly sitcoms, and I have grown to love them because she loves them. But, as she said, her idol was Lucille Ball. And just watch some silly sitcoms. You'll find yourself kind of
With Netflix, you can find all the old ones, like Lucille Ball, Dick Van Dyke Show, Carol Burnett. You can find all those fun old comedies. And
another thing you can do is subscribe to a clean joke of the day. And maybe you read it at dinner to your family, just get laughing and talk about, something that's fun or funny. There's many ways to build laughter into your home. And the truths, the benefits, the truths that are there are amazing.
Well, thank you for joining us. We just ask that you would subscribe to our podcast, rate it, share it with your friends. We really appreciate you joining us, because Jay and I are all about helping busy couples stay married, happily married for life.